We are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Martin Halbert. I'm Dean of Libraries here at University of North Texas and one of your hosts for this event. I'll have some logistic information about the day in just a moment, but I first wanted to introduce our Chancellor Lee Jackson, who's going to have some opening welcome remarks.
Thank you, Martin. I am Lee Jackson, the Chancellor of the University of North Texas System. I don't know how many of you are from this region or from farther afield in Texas, the nation, or the world, but I can only say that I wish this were our facility. I wish that all of us in higher education and in libraries could work in an environment as classy, understated, tasteful, thoughtful as this new Communities Foundation headquarters. So I want to thank the Communities Foundation for being our hosts. One of the pleasures of my job as a system head is that I'm allowed to make perfunctory, polite opening remarks at many events on subjects about which I know very little. And this morning is an example. UNT has the largest campus, the largest research presence, and I think the largest information science library / open access presence in our region. So this is a part of a continuum that's very much at the core of our history as an institution. Our College of Library Science is now the College of Information. Our library has really exciting open portal partnerships, both at the state level with the Texas State Historical Association, but also nationally and internationally with the Library of Congress. So this is something that I've observed from a distance and have taken pride in. The subjects that you're going to be wrestling with for the next 2 days, however, are a little bit different, and I don't get to be very directly involved. I do spend a fair amount of time discussing online education, digital content delivery, and the way it affects what's going on in the classroom and is about to start affecting it. Not only at UNT, but at our Health Science Center in Fort Worth, and particularly at our new small startup university campus in southern Dallas, there is a raging debate about how digital content delivery is going to change the role of faculty members, what kind of teaching is most effective. I saw a study yesterday about whether charismatic teachers, in fact, produce different learning results. One of the assumptions behind which MOOCs are based is the idea that some of us are simply better communicators than others, and so if you go and get the very best communicators in the world, the results ought to be better. Well, of course, there's more to learning than listening, and the active learning that goes on in person is a part of it. So some of the studies are saying, no, charisma doesn't matter. Some of those same issues, it seems to me, you're discussing and going to be discussing in open access to scholarly research and the changing nature of publications. Does universal and transparent delivery of digital material offer the same qualitative assurance as more traditional methods? What will be the revenue streams that support the investments that are needed to assure quality? And what will be the impact not only on established scholars, but on rising young scholars in having much greater access to publication, but perhaps not as clear a pathway to recognition, stature, validation, and peer recognition? I see this just a little bit. Once a year, I give a Chancellor's Award for Scholarly Research to a student at our Health Science Center. We have 5 colleges in Fort Worth in medicine, pharmacy, public health, and graduate biomedical sciences, and so each year there's a modest award given for a variety of subjects. Mine is the privilege to award a small scholarship for scholarly research excellence by a student. And I have noticed over the past 5-6 years that our graduate students, all of our students in health science are graduate students, have far more scholarly research to their credit. Their vitas are getting longer, their publication lists are more elaborate, but it's no longer the New England Journal of Medicine or even Nature magazine. It's a lot of things that I've never heard of, many of which are not peer-reviewed. They're not only open access to the public, they're open access to publication, which is what you're debating. How do we sift through that and make sure that it's going to produce a net positive social benefit as well as scholarly assurance? So I read a few blog threads about the subject of scholarly digital publication to prepare myself in depth for today's discussion. So I know what the Digital Public Library of America project is. I know about May's books, the venture of Michigan Publishing, and I've seen some of the commentator debate back and forth about this balance between assurance, validation, cost, access, just enough to know that it's time for me to stop. Because in fact, this is not a simple question. It's an exciting question. I assume that most of you wouldn't come to a conference like this if you didn't have an above average interest in open access and what it holds and what it can mean. However, you're also directly involved on the front line of deciding how to assure quality and provide validation and so forth, so that future young scholars seeking to receive peer review, to have publications that help their career, will in fact navigate the new digital pathways of online publishing. So it's very exciting. UNT is proud to be able to host this event. Our president is out of state, and so sort of like the vice president in Washington, it works a little differently in the university world. You know, in Washington, when the president can't go to a funeral, they send the vice president. But in a multi-campus system, when the president, who is directly responsible and involved, is out of state at another event, they ask the chancellor to come and welcome. So on behalf of President Lane Rollins and the entire faculty, students and staff of the University of North Texas, I welcome you here to this conference in Dallas. We're pleased to be able to host it. And when you get the answers to all these questions, please send them to me. I need this help for next year's budget discussions. Thank you very much.
And I'm delighted to introduce one more opening speaker, Dr. Kenneth Sewell, who is our Vice President for Research and Economic Development.
Well, if you're like most of the people at the University of North Texas, you might be asking, what the heck is a Vice President for Research and Economic Development? And I'm not going to go into that in any detail whatsoever, primarily because in keeping with Chancellor Jackson's comments, I need to be brief. My sense is, Lee, that we as the perfunctory opening speakers at these kinds of meetings are a bit like corpses at funerals. You know, they kind of have to have us, but nobody wants to hear us say much. But anyway, the Vice President for Research at any university, whether it's tagged with Research and Economic Development or Research and Technology Transfer or Research and Creative Activities, et cetera, are primarily about promoting the research culture and the research accomplishments of the faculty and students at our campuses. And certainly in the sciences and social sciences, the research enterprise is not complete until that publication is achieved. And in many other fields, in the creative fields and humanities, et cetera, it's not just that it's not complete, it's not even existent until that publication process is there. You know, I think a little bit about an old creation story that says something about on the third day of creation, the Creator separated the waters from the dry land. And whether that refers to a historic event or perhaps a metaphor, I think it's at least a metaphor that is spoken to farmers and irrigators for many centuries and perhaps millennia about getting that water to the dry land and in the right places so that it can promote growth and so on. And I think it speaks to many of us in academia as well. So that as my own profession, my own discipline, I'm a clinical psychologist by training, and I can trace my academic lineage just through 6 easy steps to the very beginning of the field of psychology and Wilhelm Wundt's establishment of the first psychology laboratory at the University of Leipzig in 1890. So not that long ago, really, and certainly other disciplines are older than mine. But we in the various academic disciplines have been attempting to get that water to the dry land and allow growth, allow our students to grow, allow our knowledge base to grow from our various disciplines. Now, I know y'all are from a lot of different, I'm from Oklahoma originally, now from in Texas, so I can say y'all are from a lot of different places. But if you're around here in Texas, you know that dry land can get pretty dry, and sometimes it gets harder and harder to get that life source to where we can promote growth. And through much of the history of academia, that's been the model, is working to get that impact, to get someone to invest in getting our knowledge published and out there. In about a month and a half, I'll be making a transition, and a colleague from up north is going to come and be the vice president for research at the University of North Texas, and I'm going to head a little bit southeast and be the vice president for research and economic development at the University of New Orleans. Well, in 2005, something happened in New Orleans. Wasn't so much the hurricane, although that Katrina certainly prompted things. But if you watch the news, or if you're around there, you know that the real event was when the levees were breached. And all of a sudden, the separation between the dry land and the waters was overwhelmed. That's where we are right now in academic publishing. The separation between the waters and the dry land has been breached. And now we have a recovery process, but if we approach recovery in the right way, it's always a discovery process. So now we have to invent the new model. Just as New Orleans is inventing itself over again and re-separating what's going to be the dry land and what's going to be the waters, and how do we bring that joining so that it promotes growth. That's where we are now in academic publishing. It's no longer a matter of how do we convince somebody to get our information out there. It's how do we use the various tools that we have to expose the knowledge, the information, the creativity in ways that both allows that growth for our students and our disciplines, but also gets that community validation for what we're doing. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, and I fulfilled my 2 or 3 minutes of perfunctory opening remarks. But I want to welcome you here. I want to validate from at least the perspective of a research administrator who's all about promoting research accomplishments of the faculty and students at my institution, and I'm engaged nationally about making that happen across academia in this country, and want to express my appreciation for you guys tackling the very complex issues you have before you today. So you're going to hear from scholars, from librarians, from researchers, from hopefully not too many more academic administrators like myself, but you're at the forefront of putting this thing back together in a new and exciting way, and I welcome you and thank you for being here.